My parents publicly humiliated me at Thanksgiving with a $2 scratch-off while my sister got a $13,000 cruise. I smiled, pocketed the ticket, and drove home alone. 23 days later, I had 100,079 missed calls. I had no intention of returning. The turkey wasn't even cold yet when my mother started crying about how proud she was of Dana. I remember watching the steam still rising off the platter. I remember the exact quality of light in that dining room, amber and generous, the kind that makes everyone look a little warmer than they are. I remember thinking, this is fine. This is just how it is. You know how it is. What I didn't know, sitting in the chair I'd always been given, the one with the wobbly left leg, wedged against the wall near the kitchen door, was that in exactly 23 days I would be sitting in my own kitchen at 11:04 p.m., staring at a scratched piece of cardboard that would make every single moment of that dinner feel like a verdict being read aloud. But I'm getting ahead of myself. My name is Avery. I'm 34 years old. I'm a pediatric nurse. I work 12-hour shifts at St. Catherine's Children's Hospital, and I have done so for 8 years. I drive a 2017 Honda Civic with 94,000 miles on it and a crack in the passenger side mirror I've been meaning to fix for 2 years. I live alone in a one-bedroom apartment that smells like coffee and the lavender hand lotion I buy in bulk because I wash my hands approximately 40 times per shift. I am not dramatic. I am not a crier. I am not the kind of person who makes speeches or scenes or statements. That comes later. Stick with me. My sister Dana is 31. She is beautiful in the way that people describe as effortless, which is funny because I have watched Dana effort for 31 years. She married Kyle at 26 in a ceremony my parents paid $40,000 for. They also made the down payment on her and Kyle's house. They bought her a Lexus RX when she got her real estate license. They paid off $22,000 of Kyle's graduate school debt because Kyle is, and I quote my father here, a provider type. I am not a provider type, apparently. I provide 12-hour shifts of IV management, pain assessment, and holding the hands of children whose parents can't afford to be in the room. But that's a different kind of providing. My parents are Gerald and Susan. Gerald sold insurance for 30 years and retired well. Susan taught second grade until her knees gave out, and then became, as far as I can tell, a full-time Dana advocate. They live in the house I grew up in, outside of Columbus, 42 miles from my apartment. They have a dining room that seats 12. They have a cabinet full of crystal they only use on holidays. They have a daughter who matters, and one who shows up. I showed up every Thanksgiving, every Christmas, every Easter brunch with the same fruit salad contribution, because Susan once said she loved my fruit salad, and I have made it every year since, like a supplicant bringing an offering to a temple that will never quite let me in. That Thanksgiving, I drove the 42 miles with the fruit salad in the passenger seat. The gift exchange happened after dessert. It always does. My parents like the ceremony of it. They make announcements. There's usually a bow on something. The year Dana got the Lexus, my father brought out the key fob on a little velvet tray. That's a true story. This year, my father stood up while we were still at the table. 7 of us, including Kyle and his mother, Diane, who always smells faintly of Chanel No. 5 in Judgment. And he cleared his throat the way men do when they are about to be very pleased with themselves. "We have something we want to share," he said, and Susan was already smiling the way she smiles when she already knows the punchline. They gave Dana an envelope. She opened it slowly, in the way she opens things, which is always a performance. And then she made a sound, this high, glassy sound, like a wine glass being struck, and she pressed both hands to her face and said, "Oh my God, Mom." It was a cruise. A $13,000 Mediterranean cruise. 14 nights. A balcony stateroom. Italy, Greece, Croatia, departing in February. The table erupted. Kyle pumped his fist. Diane said, "Oh, well done, Gerald." My mother clasped her hands. Dana cried, but the photogenic kind, just the sheen of it, her mascara perfectly intact. I clapped. I did. I sat there and I clapped. Then my father reached into his breast pocket and produced something much smaller. He held it out to me across the table with a smile that I can only describe as fond, like he thought he was being clever. Like this was a bit we were in together. It was a scratch-off lottery ticket, the kind you see in a little plastic spinner rack next to the cigarettes at a gas station. $2. It had a silver scratch surface and a cartoon of a money bag on it. There was a note card paper clipped to it in my father's handwriting, in blue pen, slightly slanted the way his handwriting always is. "Don't spend it all in one place." The table laughed. Not mean laughing. Not the laughing of people who hate you. The laughing of people who think this is a light moment, a fun moment, the kind of comedic contrast that makes a Thanksgiving memorable. Dana said between giggles, "It's the thought that counts, Ave." Kyle said something about scratching it right now. Diane smiled with her whole mouth and none of her eyes. I smiled too. I pocketed the card. I helped clear the table. I drove home alone in the dark, the 42 miles, and I put the ticket on my kitchen counter, and I went to bed because I had a 6 a.m. shift, and children don't stop needing nurses because your family just priced fleeced you at $2 in front of everyone you know. 23 days later, I had worked a double. I came home smelling like hospital, that specific antiseptic and tired smell that never quite washes out of scrubs. And I made a bowl of instant oatmeal because it was 10:50 p.m. and I didn't have the energy for real food. I ate it standing at the counter. I was in the specific kind of exhausted where you stop having thoughts and just become a body doing body things. The scratch-off was still on the counter. I'd moved it twice, once to wipe down the counter, once to make room for my coffee maker, but I hadn't thrown it away. I'm not sure why. Maybe because you don't throw away gifts, even bad ones. Maybe because some part of me wanted to keep it as evidence of something I couldn't quite name yet. I picked it up. I found a dime in the junk drawer, bent, old, the profile of Roosevelt worn smooth, and I scratched. The thing about scratch-off tickets is that there is a specific order you're supposed to follow. You match numbers, you reveal amounts. I scratched methodically, the way I do things, corner to corner. The silver stuff came off in little curls and stuck to my fingertip. I looked at what I'd uncovered. I put the ticket down. I picked it up again. My heart was not racing. That's the thing people don't tell you. In the real moments, the enormous moments, your body doesn't behave like a movie. It goes very, very still. Like every system suddenly needs the energy for something other than keeping you upright. I sat down at my kitchen table. The oatmeal bowl was still there. My phone was face down next to it. The overhead light was on. I never use the overhead light. I have lamps, but I'd been too tired to bother, and it was making everything very bright and very flat. I looked at the ticket for what I would later estimate, based on the clock, was approximately 11 minutes. Then I did something I had never done in my adult life. I Googled the number on the back of the ticket, the state lottery verification line, and I dialed it on my landline. I still have a landline because the signal in my apartment is bad and because old habits die slow. The automated system confirmed the sequence. Then it said, in a calm, recorded voice, the kind of voice that has no idea what it is saying to you. This ticket is a top prize winner. Please contact the Ohio Lottery Commission to claim your prize. Do not lose this ticket. I hung up. I sat very still. It was 11:04 p.m. I thought about the cruise brochure Dana had already posted to her Instagram story. I thought about the way the table had laughed. I thought about the note card in my father's handwriting. Don't spend it all in one place. I thought about every Christmas where Dana's pile of gifts was 3 times mine, and I told myself it was because she'd given them a list and I hadn't, as if that explained it, as if the explanation made it not what it was. I thought about the Lexus on the velvet tray. I thought about my 94,000-mile Civic with its cracked mirror. I thought about 8 years of 12-hour shifts and instant oatmeal at 11 p.m. and driving 42 miles to bring a fruit salad to a table where I sat in the wobbly chair. I thought about all of that, and then I called a lawyer, not my family. Her name was Patricia Okonkwo. She was a 49-year-old estate and lottery attorney with a practice in downtown Columbus, and her associate answered the emergency line at 11:30 p.m. Because lottery attorneys have emergency lines, which I did not know until that evening, and Patricia herself called me back within 8 minutes. Her voice was exactly what you'd want in a crisis. Low, measured, efficient, like a very good anesthesiologist. You just trust it. Tell me exactly what you have, she said. Amount, game name, jurisdiction, ticket condition. I told her. There was a pause, not a long one. 2 seconds, maybe 3. Have you told anyone? Not one person. Do you have the ticket in your hand right now? Yes. Good. Put it in a sealed envelope, write today's date and your initials across the seal, and put it somewhere only you can access. Do not photograph it on a device that syncs to the cloud. Do not tell your employer, your neighbors, your friends, or any family member. Do you understand? Yes. Come to my office tomorrow at 10 a.m. Bring the ticket. Bring your ID. Bring nothing else. A pause. N. Avery, sleep if you can. This will all still be true in the morning. I put the ticket in an envelope from the stack I keep for bills. I sealed it. I initialed across the flap. I put it in the back of my sock drawer behind the rolled-up wool socks I only wear in January. I did not sleep, but I stayed in bed, which is close. I met Patricia at 10 a.m. Her office was on the 14th floor of a building near the State House. She had floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the Columbus skyline, and a bookshelf that ran the entire length of one wall. She was wearing a charcoal blazer and reading glasses pushed up on her head, and when I came in, she looked at me the way doctors look at patients, assessing, but without drama. I handed her the envelope. She put on latex gloves. She actually kept them in her desk drawer, which told me this was not her first rodeo, and she examined the ticket under a magnifying glass and cross-referenced the number on her computer. And then she set it down on her desk blotter and she looked at me. Confirmed, she said. One word. $112,400,000, she said. After the lump sum election and federal and state withholding, you're looking at approximately 63 to 66 million in hand, depending on finalization. I nodded. I had done the math, sort of. She smiled. For the first time, the barest smile. You might be the first sensible winner I've ever met. I don't feel sensible, I said. I feel like I'm underwater. That's normal, she said. And it passes. She pulled out a legal pad. Here's what we're going to do. What Patricia did over the next 6 days was remarkable. She filed the claim through a blind trust, a legal structure that allowed the prize to be claimed without my name ever appearing on public record. The trust was named, at her suggestion, something boring and procedural, the Meridian Family Trust. The Lottery Commission released a statement that a local resident had claimed the top prize through a trust. That was all. No name, no photo, no oversized check with my face on it. In Ohio at the time, you could do this. Patricia had done it before. She knew every step, every form, every filing deadline. She also introduced me to 2 other members of what she called my advisory team. Marcus Webb was a wealth management advisor at a private firm, not one of the big flashy ones you see advertised on billboards, but a quiet practice that managed money for exactly the kind of people who didn't want anyone knowing they had money. He was 53, calm, methodical, and in our first meeting, he handed me a printed portfolio strategy and said, "Your job right now is to do nothing except what Patricia and I tell you. Can you do that?" "Yes," I said. "Good." He clicked his pen. Most people can't. The third was Dr. Janet Reyes, a financial psychologist. Yes, that's a real specialty, who Patricia recommended for all her lottery clients. 58 years old, 20 years in practice, formerly affiliated with Ohio State's Behavioral Finance Department. In our first session, she said something that I've thought about almost every day since. The money doesn't change who you are. It removes the insulation between who you are and what other people have always been. I wrote that down. For 3 weeks, I was a secret 100 millionaire. I went back to work. Same scrubs, same 6 a.m. shifts, same badge, same locker with the slightly sticky combination lock. I held the hand of a 7-year-old named Marcus during a lumbar puncture, and I talked him through it. And when it was over, he said I had the calmest hands he'd ever seen, and I thought, "Kid, you have no idea. I bought nothing. I changed nothing. I moved through my life like it was a room I was renting while my real life was built somewhere else." At night, I would sit at my kitchen table with a cup of tea and look at the spot where the ticket had been and feel something I didn't have a word for yet. Not happiness, not relief, something more complicated. Like a door had opened in a wall I'd stopped believing had doors. Dana posted the cruise swimwear photo on day 12. She was in a white one-piece, one hand on a straw hat, standing on what I think was a pier somewhere in Florida. A preview shoot, apparently, because the cruise wasn't for another few weeks. The caption said, "Blessed," 47 comments. Kyle had commented a red heart. My mother had commented a prayer hands emoji. I double-tapped it. I don't know why. Reflex. On day 19, Dr. Reyes asked me in our session, "What do you want them to know?" "I don't know yet," I said. "Yes, you do," she said. She had this way of saying things that felt less like challenges and more like mirrors. "I want them to know that the person they've been treating like an afterthought for 34 years was the person who mattered," I said. And then, because honesty was the only thing I had left, "And I want to watch them realize it." She nodded. Not approvingly, exactly. More like she was taking a reading. "What happens after that?" "I don't know. That's the part to figure out," she said. It came on day 24. Patricia had warned me it might. The convenience store where I'd bought the ticket, a Marathon station 3 blocks from my apartment, where I'd stopped for gas on a Sunday morning and grabbed the ticket as an afterthought, 6 days before Thanksgiving, not even knowing I'd give it away. The clerk there had apparently been doing math, a $2 ticket from his store that had won the top prize. A customer around that time who'd bought a single scratch-off. He had a rough description. He talked to someone. That someone talked to someone else. I don't know exactly who made the leap to me. Patricia thinks it was my cousin Derek, who'd heard about the convenience store detail through the cousin network, and did math that intersected with what he knew about where I lived and where I usually got gas. Derek is the kind of person who uses the phrase, "I'm just saying," a lot, which means he's always saying something he wants plausible deniability for. My phone went off at 7:12 p.m. on a Tuesday. A text from Derek, "Hey, so random thing, but did you happen to buy a lottery ticket at a marathon recently, LOL?" I put my phone face down and started making dinner. By 8 p.m., I had 14 texts. By 9:30, I had 41 missed calls. By midnight, the counter hit 79. My mother, my father, Dana, Kyle, Aunt Patricia, not my lawyer, a different one, Uncle Ron, 3 cousins, 2 numbers I didn't recognize. My mother had called 11 times. 11 in 4 hours. The texts were extraordinary. I want to be precise about this because the precision matters. My mother, "Sweetheart, we love you so much. Please call Mom right away. We've been trying to reach you all night." Sent at 8:14 p.m. Note, she has not called me sweetheart since I was approximately 9 years old. My father, Avery, "Call us. This is important." Sent at 8:31 p.m. short, authoritative, like he was summoning an employee. Dana, "Oh my God, Avery. I'm literally crying happy tears. You have to call me. I can't believe it. You deserve this so much." Sent at 9:02 p.m. Dana, who 3 weeks prior had said, "It's the thought that counts." while our family laughed at what I'd been handed. Kyle, a 4-minute and 12-second voicemail. I played it once. He used the phrase, "family should keep this in the family," twice. He appointed himself unprompted as a potential financial manager. He mentioned casually that he'd done some real estate investment courses and had thoughts. He called me Avery Girl, which is something he had never called me in the 6 years I'd known him. Not one of them said sorry, not one word about the card, not one acknowledgement of the note card with my father's handwriting, not one, "Hey, in retrospect, that Thanksgiving thing was nothing." Just hands out, wrapped in love language, moving toward the light like something that had been living in the dark. I sat on my couch with my phone in my lap, and I watched the notifications come in, and I felt something crystallize in me. Not anger, exactly, though anger was there. Something colder, cleaner, the feeling of a decision making itself without your help. I texted my mother back one line, "I'll come to Christmas. See you then." I could feel the group chat ignite from 40 miles away. In the 17 days between that text and Christmas, I was not idle. I had 3 more sessions with Dr. Reyes. In the second one, she walked me through something she called the distinction between resolution and revenge. And I want to be honest, the line is thinner than you'd think. What I wanted wasn't revenge in the crude sense. I wasn't trying to humiliate them, or not only that. What I wanted was accuracy. I wanted the record to reflect what had actually happened. I had been priced, quantifiably, at $2 in a room full of people who loved my sister. That was a fact that deserved to be spoken out loud, at full volume, in the same room where it had happened. Marcus and I finalized a philanthropic allocation plan in the second week of December. I want to be specific, because the specificity mattered enormously to me. First, Aunt Carol, my father's younger sister, who had been battling breast cancer for 2 years and whose medical debt had climbed, as of her last statement, to $84,000. She was on a payment plan that she mentioned once, at Easter, in the parking lot, in the quick way people mention things they've been carrying alone. My parents had said, "We'd help, but you know how it is right now." I had $84,000 wired to a medical debt clearinghouse before I went to Christmas dinner, with instructions for Aunt Carol to receive a letter from an anonymous donor in the new year. Her debt was already gone before she knew it. Second, the pediatric ward at St. Catherine's. There was a family room on the 4th floor that every nurse knew was inadequate. 2 chairs, a TV from 2009, a coffee machine that hadn't worked in months. I'd heard the administrator, Margaret Hollis, mention in a staff meeting that she'd been trying for 3 years to get a renovation approved. I met with Margaret privately in her office, telling her only that I was exploring a charitable contribution, and I arranged a $2.1 million unrestricted gift to the Children's Fund, designated for capital improvements and family support services. Margaret literally gripped the edge of her desk when I told her the number. Third, a nursing scholarship for women funding their own education without family support. I named it, in the trust documents quietly, the Own 2 Feet Scholarship. First year's endowment, $500,000. Patricia set it up through a community foundation, so the administration was arm's length from me. Applications opening in March. Marcus kept telling me I was being careful. Dr. Reyes kept reminding me to check in with myself about my own needs, not just everyone else's. I kept making lists. I also had one phone call I want to tell you about, because it changed the texture of everything that came after. I called Aunt Carol, not to tell her about the debt. The letter hadn't gone out yet, just to call her. It was a Thursday night, and she answered on the second ring, sounding tired in the specific way chemo makes people tired, which is different from regular tired, hollower. We talked for an hour and a half. She told me about her treatment schedule. She told me about her neighbor who brought soup on Tuesdays. She told me she hadn't told the family how bad the bills were because she didn't want to be a burden. And as she said it, she laughed a little, bitterly, the way you laugh at things that aren't funny. I told her she wasn't a burden. I told her she deserved help. I told her there were people in her corner she didn't even know about yet. "That's a nice thing to say, sweetheart," she said. "I mean it," I said. After I hung up, I sat in the dark for a while. My parents' house was unrecognizable. I mean that architecturally, almost. The same furniture, the same carpet, the same wreath on the door that they use every year. But the atmosphere was different in a way that registered in my body before my brain caught up. A warmth that was too deliberate, an arrangement too careful. They had put effort in, real effort. There were candles lit in the front hall. My mother met me before I'd taken off my coat. Not the usual greeting. A real embrace, both arms, her chin on my shoulder, holding on longer than she normally would. "I'm so glad you're here," she said. "Thanks for having me," I said, which is what I always say. Dana was there. She had canceled the cruise. She mentioned this within 4 minutes of my arrival, in the way you'd mention a sacrifice you wanted credit for. Kyle had a new haircut. He kept touching my arm when he talked to me, this practiced warmth, the kind you can see the wiring of if you look closely enough. There were presents with my name on them them, big ones. This had never happened before, not in living memory. There was a box from a kitchen store I like. There was a card with a bow on it that, based on the dimensions, contained something gift card shaped. My father had poured me a glass of wine before I sat down, pressed it into my hand like an offering. I sat in the good chair, the one I had never once been offered in 34 years of Christmas dinners. I sat in it. I held the wine I wasn't going to drink. I watched them perform at full volume, the laughter too easy, the compliments too frequent, the attention too total, like a spotlight that had finally swung my direction after 3 decades of illuminating someone else. It was almost beautiful, in a terrible way. They were trying so hard. I let it run for 45 minutes. I ate the appetizers. I admired the tree. I let my mother tell a story about Dana's childhood that I'd heard 11 times, and I smiled at the right moments. Then I set down my glass. Can I say something? The room went silent so fast it was almost funny. Not a gradual quiet, an instantaneous one, like someone had hit a switch. 3 weeks ago at this table, I couldn't have stopped a conversation if I'd fainted. Now I had the room before I'd finished the sentence. I stood up. I reached into my bag. The card was exactly where I'd put it, in the inner pocket, folded once, behind my work ID. I'd taken it back out of the sock drawer the morning Patricia received confirmation of our trust structure. I had carried it every day since. It was bent at one corner from pocket wear. The scratch surface was silver gray and dull, where I'd worked the dime across it. My father's handwriting was still clear. 3 weeks ago at Thanksgiving, I said. Most of you were in this room. My parents gave Dana a $13,000 Mediterranean cruise. I held the card up, face forward, so everyone could see the money bag and the silver surface and the bent corner. They gave me this. No sound from anyone. A $2 scratch-off ticket, with a note. I looked down at the card and I read it slowly, the way you read evidence. Don't spend it all in one place. I set the card down on the coffee table, face up. Nobody laughed. The thought counted, I said. Just like Dana said. The thought was that she was worth $13,000 and I was worth $2. That was the thought. That was the cost of me, in this family, at this table, after 34 years. I looked at my mother. I came home. I made oatmeal. And 3 weeks later, I scratched the ticket. I let that sentence sit. It paid out $100 million. The number moved through the room like a wave. I watched it travel face to face. I saw the exact moment it landed in each of them, the precise shift from disbelief to calculation. Kyle's jaw worked. Dana's hand went to her mouth. I've already decided where it goes, I said. Aunt Carol's medical debt, which is currently $84,000, in case you were wondering, which I know you were not. It's paid. A letter's already on its way. My father made a sound. I kept going. The children's ward where I work is getting a full family suite renovation. $2 million. The paperwork's been filed. I took a breath. And there's a nursing scholarship for girls putting themselves through school without help. The Own 2 Feet scholarship. That one's personal. I picked up my coat. You priced me at $2 for 34 years. I looked at my mother. Just my mother. Now that it turned into $100 million, I'm your baby girl again. I see that. I understand it. I buttoned the first button. I'm not funding a single person in this room. Not because I want to hurt you. Because I finally understand the value of things. And that's the receipt. My mother screamed, not in anger, in that particular register that is grief and shock mixed together, a sound I'd only heard once before at a funeral. Kyle stood up so fast he knocked his wine glass and it tipped, but didn't fall. He was red-faced and sputtering, something about family money, something about how this works, something about, you can't just... Dana opened her mouth, and in a voice that had gone very small, she said, Avery, it's the thought that... She stopped. She heard herself. Her face crumpled, slowly, like something structural giving way, and she looked at me across the room with her hands covering her mouth, and she started to cry. Not the photogenic kind, the real kind, the ugly, rearranged face kind that you can't perform. I watched her for a moment, and I felt something unexpected. Not satisfaction exactly. Something sadder than that. The grief of having been right. I walked to the door. Merry Christmas. I left the card on the table. They could keep it. I walked out into the cold air and I stood on the porch for exactly 30 seconds, looking at the neighborhood, the Christmas lights on the Henderson's roof, the sodium glow of the street lights, the familiar curve of this street where I'd learned to ride a bike. And then I went to my car. My phone, face down in the cup holder. I didn't look at it until I was home. Epilogue. What came next? 3 months later, some things have changed and some things haven't. I still drive the Civic. I'll probably drive it another year. Marcus says I can buy anything I want, but so far what I've wanted is to wake up in my own apartment, make real coffee instead of gas station coffee, and go to work. And every time a kid squeezes my hand during something that scares them, know that the room they're sitting in is better than it was. The St. Catherine's renovation broke ground in February. I walked past the construction fence on a Tuesday between shifts and stood there in my scrubs looking at the sign, funded by the Meridian Family Trust, and felt something that I think might be the closest I've come to peace since all of this started. Aunt Carol got the letter on January 8th. She called my parents to tell them. She did not know it was me. She called it a miracle. My father called me that evening, first contact from either of my parents since Christmas. and said very quietly, "That was you, wasn't it?" It wasn't a question. "She needed help," I said. A pause. A long one. "We should have," he started. "Yeah," I said. "You should have. We haven't talked since." But the call happened, which is more than I expected. Dana texted me in January, not to ask for anything, just to say, "I've been thinking about what I said, every time, for years. I've been thinking about it and I don't have an excuse." I sat with that text for 4 days before I responded. What I said was, "I know. I believe you. We haven't spoken beyond that. It's a beginning of something maybe, or it's just an honest ending. I don't know yet." Dr. Reyes says that's okay, that some things resolve and some things just clarify, and clarity is its own kind of healing. Kyle sent a formal letter through an attorney in February, requesting a conversation about family financial matters. Patricia returned it with a single-sentence response. I'm not going to quote here, but which closed the door on that so firmly I heard the click from 40 miles away. The Own 2 Feet scholarship received 112 applications in its first month. I read every one of them. I know what it looks like to put yourself through something without help. I know what it looks like in the handwriting, the way people describe their circumstances with a particular careful dignity, the way they say I didn't have support in the specific language of people who've learned not to expect it. I know that handwriting because I've written it, in different forms, in different contexts, for 34 years. The first 3 recipients will be announced in April. They're getting full tuition, housing stipends, and a mentor network Patricia helped me build. They will never know who funded it. That's intentional. Some things don't need a face. They just need to be done. There's a scratch-off ticket still sitting on my parents' coffee table. I know because Aunt Carol mentioned it when she came for Sunday dinner in January, said it was still there. Face up, nobody had moved it. My father's handwriting, plain as a verdict. Don't spend it all in one place. I didn't.